a linear quadratic system, this top equation with the x squared is a quadratic, meaning it's going to make a parabola, the U shape. And this equation is a linear equation, so it is going to make a line. And so when we solve this system, we're trying to find where the line intersects the quadratic. And so we are usually going to get 2 points of intersection, an x and a y, an x and a y. And so the best way to solve these is to make sure both equations are solved for y. So in the case of the second equation, the linear equation, we need to solve that for y first by moving the x to the other side. And so our new equation would be y equals 1 minus x. Once they're both solved for y, you're just going to set them equal to each other. And so we're going to have the quadratic negative x squared plus 4x minus 3. And we're going to set that equal to the linear equation, which is 1 minus x. Okay, so from there, we just have a quadratic equation that we need to solve for x. And so to solve a quadratic equation, you move everything to one side of your equal sign. And so we're going to move these two terms to the left-hand side by subtracting the 1, but adding the x. You do the opposites. And so we're going to add the x and subtract the 1. You can only combine like terms, and so that's why I wrote them in the x spot and the constant spot. And so this new equation still has the negative x squared, but now we have plus 5x. And then minus 4 equals the 0, because there's nothing on the right side now. And so for this one, when you have a negative x squared, you're going to have to factor this, and so it's going to be so much easier if you have a positive x squared term. And so what you can do is flip the sign of every single term. And so instead, we can have a positive x squared, negative 5x, and then positive 4 equal to the 0. The reason why you want this first value, the a value, to be 1 is because when you factor it, it becomes very, very easy to factor. You just have to find two numbers that multiply to 4, but add to the negative 5. And so 1 and 4 will work as long as they're both negative. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. Negative 1 plus negative 4 gives us the negative 5. And so your factors are x minus 1 and x minus 4. You can skip right to writing the factors. And so once you have your two factors, you can solve them for x by setting each one equal to 0. So in this case, I have x minus 1 equals 0. In this case, I have x plus 4 equal to 0. On this side, I would need to add 1 to both sides, giving me x equals 1. On this side, I would need to subtract 4 from both sides, giving me x equals negative 4. Now, these are just the x values. We're dealing with the system, so we're trying to find 2 points of intersection. And so these are just the x values for the points of intersection, so negative 4 and 1. We have to find the y values that go with those. And so to find the y values, you plug the x values back in to either equation. You're going to get the same answer. And so it's easiest to use the linear equation so you don't have to square the x. And you want to use the equation that's already solved for y. That way you just plug in the values for x. So in the case of x equals 1, y equals 1 minus x, and in this case it was 1, and so 1 minus 1 is 0. And so when x equals 1, y equals 0. And then when we plug in x equals 4, we're going to have y equals 1 minus negative 4. Minus negative is the same as plus, and so y equals 5. And so in this case, we have 5. And so our two solutions to this system are -4, 5, and then 1, 0.